Good day and welcome to Caribbean Currents, a quarterly program produced and presented by the Nature Conservancy Caribbean Division that discusses important environmental topics impacting our lives, sharing the work of our incredible staff from scientists and field staff to those working in policy and finance, and highlighting the amazing places where we work in the Caribbean. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am your host, Cleveland Sam. The Caribbean is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to climate change and its ensuing impacts. Over 40 million people in the Caribbean are on the front lines of climate change. Droughts and floods caused by erratic hurricane patterns and rainfall, heat waves, and wildfires. Intense hurricanes, coupled with rising sea levels, are affecting people and nature at scales never seen before. The Nature Conservancy is partnering with communities and national governments across the Caribbean to adapt to climate events through nature-based solutions. But just what are nature-based solutions? Today, we are going to find out. I have an esteemed panel that will enlighten us. I will now like to introduce the panel, starting with my colleague, Carlos Garcia.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome to this Caribbean Current. I'm Carlos Garcia, Program Director of TNC in the Dominican Republic. I oversee the project portfolio implementation, which includes watershed restorations, waterfronts projects, and also coastal marine protection.
Thank you, Carlos. And we have Walkira Estevez.
Hola, buenos días. Walkiria Esteves, soy la directora ejecutiva del Fondo de Agua Yaque del Norte en la República Dominicana. Un fondo ambiental que está compuesto por 27 socios y que buscamos contribuir con la seguridad hídrica de la cuenca Yaque del Norte a través de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. Un gusto.
Thank you very much. And we have Valerie.
Hi, I'm Valerie McNulty. I'm a conservation scientist with the Caribbean Division at TNC, and I provide geospatial support and scientific support to projects across the Caribbean.
Great. And our colleague from the Virgin Islands, we have Owen Stanley.
Good morning. I'm Owen Stanley. I'm the project manager on the Coral Reef Flood Reduction Benefits Project here in St. Croix. Pleased to be with you.
All right. So I want to welcome all of you to this program, as I said, and we're going to discuss nature-based solutions and resilience. And I'm going to start probably with Valerie and Carlos. When we talk about nature-based solutions, what exactly are we really talking about?
Okay, the concept of nature-based solution was initially presented by the IUCN in the late 2000s and is an approach based or inspired in nature to provide solutions to different problems related to land management, urban management, as well as adaptation to climate change. It includes the management of natural resources, the water resources, food security, and water quality as well.
Okay. And Valerie, in terms of nature-based solutions, I know that science obviously plays a critical role here. After all, TNC is a science-driven organization. What is the role of the science in nature-based solutions?
When we're designing a project, a lot of our work in the Caribbean for nature-based solutions, we're looking at restoring or managing a coral reef, a mangrove, or an area of seagrass. And so bringing in spatial data on the footprint of these habitats, as well as potentially their health, if we have that information, is really helpful when we're choosing where to work. And then also when we're looking at a nature-based solution, we're ultimately hoping that restoration of these habitats will reduce flooding or increase coastal protection to people. So we can also bring in spatial data on where people live and where the flood zone is so that we can determine where we should work.
Okay, great. We're going to come back to you later, Valerie, for sure. And let me go now to Owen. Owen, you are in a peculiar position. You're with it's Vitima,
Vitima.
Vitima, right? And but most people associate Vitima with disaster recovery and so on. But you are responsible for a coral reef program. Explain to us the relationship.
So, part of Vitima's mission, in addition to protecting lives and property in an emergency situation, we also handle several grants to rebuild and make the territory more resilient. And so, nature based solutions to flooding and just the effects of extreme weather are right in our wheelhouse, per se. So, I handle most of the nature based solution projects in my department. And it's especially a good fit for us because nature based solutions represent a partnership between people and the environment that works out for the benefit of both.
Great, and seems really interesting. And I'm now go to my colleague from the Dominican Republic, Walkiria. Tell us what is York del Norte doing in terms of nature-based solutions?
Sí, nosotros trabajamos en soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para dar respuesta a diferentes problemáticas que tiene la ciudadanía. El primero tiene que ver con el saneamiento de las aguas residuales en pequeñas comunidades a través de la construcción de humedales artificiales. Estas son soluciones basadas en la naturaleza que simulan los humedales naturales para poder descontaminar las aguas residuales. Básicamente usando la tierra, grava, el sol, plantas y a través de un proceso anaeróbico se produce la descontaminación, permitiendo que estas aguas que son producidas en pequeñas comunidades o centros pues puedan vertirse ya saneadas a las fuentes de agua. Y también trabajamos soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en el área de conservación y restauración de cuencas, básicamente a través de poder trabajar en la restauración de las cuencas degradadas a través de proyectos como proyectos silvopastoril, a través de reforestación, restauración de franjas ribereñas y otros proyectos de conservación.
All right. So from listening to you guys, it seems as if nature-based solutions really present an entire suite of options. Can we discuss what are some of these options that we consider as nature-based solutions? And Carlos, since you have the mic, I'm going to start with you because I understand in the Dominican Republic, your team, you're dealing with some regenerative agriculture as well as part of nature-based solutions. So perhaps we can start with that.
Yes, Cleveland. Indeed, the nature-based solution is a suite of different options depending on what's your approach. We have different, as just mentioned, ecosystem restoration, but we also can be focusing specific ecosystem adaptation processes. We also can have processes related to natural or green infrastructure, as well as ecosystem management that's related to coastal marine zone, as Valerie was mentioning in the beginning, the very beginning, and as well as freshwater systems. And last but not least, we also count as nature-based solution whatever that goes into the protection protected areas or ecosystem protection.
Okay, great. And Owen, for you, your focus is on coral reef. So tell us, how is coral reef used as a nature-based solution in the Virgin Islands?
So, we have found that basically keeping the coral reefs healthy and increasing their height and their breadth in many areas will reduce the impact of storm surge associated with inclement weather. But in addition to this, it's great to do nature-based solutions because it has a greater overall impact than supposedly a synthetic mitigation solution. in that it contributes to things such as ecotourism, it contributes to the food supply, as well as reducing just the raw impacts of flooding and adverse weather.
Great. And also, my understanding as well is that earlier this year, that coral reefs were also declared as a natural infrastructure in the Virgin Islands.
I believe so. I don't have that information right on me, but I believe you are correct.
Valkyria, vamos a describir un poco más en detalle las diferentes soluciones basadas en naturaleza que está implementando Yaque del Norte en la cuenca.
Sí, pues si iniciamos con lo que son la construcción de plantas de tratamiento de aguas residuales tipo humedal artificial. Nosotros en República Dominicana tenemos una situación difícil, ya que a nivel nacional solamente se trata el 8% del agua residual y nosotros estamos haciendo lo que es la demostración de que estas soluciones basadas en la naturaleza a través de humedales artificiales pueden ser complementadas a las soluciones grises. ¿Y esto por qué? Porque son soluciones que consideramos que son costo efectivas, ya que no requieren un mantenimiento, diríamos, más allá que el que puede proporcionar un comité que se organiza en las comunidades, también porque no usan energía eléctrica y el nivel de eficiencia está por encima del 95%. Entonces, ¿cómo lo hacemos? Nosotros organizamos las comunidades, sobre todo las que están a la ribera de los arroyos o cañadas que vierten directamente al río Yaque del Norte, que es nuestro río de enfoque, básicamente. Entonces hacemos este proceso y básicamente lo que se hace es una recolección de las aguas residuales de las viviendas hasta llevarla a un lugar donde se construye una fosa usando una lona impermeable para evitar que el agua contaminada pues contamine el suelo. Entonces ya con procesos naturales de grava, arena, plantas, el agua queda en el humedal por un tiempo aproximado de 72 horas y entonces ahí se va haciendo el proceso de descontaminación de las aguas residuales. Ese es uno de los proyectos demostrativos que nosotros hemos estado promoviendo. Ya hemos construido 24 humedales artificiales en la cuenca y están básicamente haciendo un saneamiento de aproximadamente 600,000 metros cúbicos de aguas residuales en el año y beneficiando aproximadamente 12,000 personas. En el área de restauración y conservación de cuencas tenemos aproximadamente 2,000 hectáreas en procesos de reconversión, de restauración. Nosotros tenemos situaciones difíciles en la cuenca, en la parte alta. Para poder garantizar la disponibilidad de agua, trabajamos en la restauración de las microcuencas, básicamente en la protección del suelo, en la reforestación, en la reconversión de pasar de una ganadería invasiva a una ganadería sostenible a través de los proyectos silvopastoril. Básicamente lo que buscamos aquí es poder garantizar el agua para la cuenca. Y si ustedes se fijan, priorizamos dos áreas importantes, que es la disponibilidad del agua a través de la restauración y conservación de la cuenca, y lo que es que esa agua pueda tener la calidad suficiente para poder ser usada a través ahí de los humedales artificiales. Entonces, son dos soluciones basadas en la naturaleza que permiten dar solución a una problemática específica que tiene la comunidad. Y obviamente estas soluciones pues aportan a lo que es mitigar los impactos del cambio climático, porque al ser una isla nosotros estamos expuestos a fenómenos extremos, llámese una sequía prolongada que puede afectar los cultivos, pero también a inundaciones, deslizamientos de tierra y otros procesos que afectan. Y algo importante mencionar que nuestra cuenca Yaque del Norte es una cuenca importante porque básicamente es la cuenca más grande de la República Dominicana, el 15% del territorio nacional, y es una cuenca importante para lo que es la seguridad alimentaria del país. En ese sentido, el sector que más usa agua es el sector agrícola, que utiliza un 80% del agua con una eficiencia de menos de un 30%, lo cual también nos lleva a un desafío importante a través de otras soluciones basadas en la naturaleza ya para el sector de la agricultura.
All right. And Carlos, what is the relationship between TNC and this organization, Yaque del Norte?
Well, TNC has brought the water funds to the Dominican Republic. In fact, we have created the first and so far the unique water funds in the whole Caribbean. Water funds are conceived as a platform from public partner coalition where everybody is agreed to work into water security and promote best management, governance, and financial resources to execute this kind of intervention that we have just described. TNC
Okay.
board
Go
of the
ahead,
water
Carlos.
fund.
Sorry.
Just saying that TNC has also a share in the board of the water fund.
Okay, great. And Valerie, I'm going to ask you and Owen the same question. What is the relationship between our colleagues in TNC in the Virgin Islands and Carlos's department?
So I'm gonna pass this one off to Valerie. I think she's the expert on the connection here.
Okay, Valerie, go ahead.
So Owen's with the Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency, and we received funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to work on coral, better understanding the benefits of coral restoration in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so we were working with FEMA, as well as the University of California, Santa Cruz, and the U.S. Geological Survey. And what we did was we modeled the cost against the benefits of restoration so that we could better understand the return on investment. And we found that the annual expected benefit of protecting reefs is $32 million per year. And if we further restore those reefs, that's another $6 million per year. And that's just the annual expected benefit. Under a major storm, like a 1 in 50 year event, that jumps up to $94 million. So obviously, restoring and protecting these reefs is really valuable in terms of coastal protection. And then also with these models that we did, these are spatial maps. So we can figure out which areas do we receive the best return on investment. In some areas, we found that the benefits in terms of dollars outweigh the cost 17 to 1. So those are areas we want to prioritize working on coral restoration.
That's awesome. I mean, well, I think, Owen, you can comment now in terms of how important is this information in terms of helping you and your department to work?
It's very good because part of any community is a bit of planning going into the future. So we were able to realize that coral restoration today is only going to gain in strength in terms of dollar value going forward as St. Croix and the Virgin Islands continues to grow in population and also in development. But interestingly enough, you know, it's an interesting project because when I first got the paperwork on it, I was reading it and I was like, okay, it's an underwater project. This is interesting. And as people, we tend to forget that 3/4 of the earth is actually covered by water. So the health of the ecosystems that operate and function in the ocean directly impact our quality of life. So it's a good project to undertake. And as I stay more and more in this field, I see that nature-based solutions are really gaining steam and are really coming to the forefront in terms of urban planning and also mitigation.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for you. In terms of the actual interventions, what interventions are taking place at the moment or planned by Vitima using this information and nature-based solutions?
No, we're just acting as a liaison between TNC and FEMA. Eventually, TNC is going to do, they're the experts on this, so they are really introducing the concept of coral reef restoration and just nature-based restoration as part of the portfolio of tools per se that FEMA and Vitima and other communities are going to have to mitigate severe weather or just climate change in general.
Okay. Colleagues, I want to shift the discussion a little now to the issue of biodiversity. And Valerie, I'm going to start with you. I know in your opening, you did mention, about doing the research and seeing what is there. How critical an issue, and Carlos, you can also jump in, is biodiversity when we are determining how we use nature-based solutions?
I think improved biodiversity is a really important co-benefit when you're working on nature-based solutions. So when we're trying to reduce flooding using a reef, that's also creating the co-benefit of more fisheries. It's a nursery habitat for different species. And that's also important to people because fisheries is a livelihood and it's a food source.
And in addition to that, I would say that really 60% of all species live in the ground. So in the soil, use the soil as a means of living or shelter. So we need to keep that in mind when restoring the watershed. We also restoring the fundamentals of production for food security, for fiber, for everything that we need in our day-to-day life. So it's very important to have a healthy ecosystem that do not produce landslide that goes ultimately to the reefs and create this sedimentation, producing all these kinds. So you lose power production in the ground and then kill your coral reefs at the end of the slide. So it's a win-win relation. We need to keep that in mind when talking about nature-based solution and biodiversity. Tackling one issue, you contribute to solve or reduce the impact or avoid the impact of several other sources of pressures.
All right, and thank you so much, Carlos, for that, and Vali. I'm going to ask a question again to the entire panel, and each of you can contribute. And in preparing for this panel discussion, one of the points that came across in the literature was the whole idea of the success of nature-based solutions. How do we know that nature-based solutions are successful?
Well, sometimes you need some hard data to prove that you have been successful, in that you have your monitoring processes in place. But sometimes you only need to see with your own eyes. When you see that there was naked buried soil and then you have trees and grass and birds are coming back and the water flow remains in the dry season, if the river doesn't disappear, the spring doesn't disappear, you are doing something very impactful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
And
you're
also,
asking the tough questions. Go ahead, Owen.
yeah, so also to piggyback on that is that when you do man-made solutions, typically you only see the results in an extreme event, and you can say, okay, this worked or this levee worked or so forth. But in terms of things like coral reef restoration, like our colleague said, you can just see it when you dive down there. You can see more fish, more coral, more species. The fishermen come back and report that we have a healthier catch every day. So it really lends itself to a very holistic benefit approach.
And just to add to that, it's really hard to measure reduced flooding, but we can measure the health of the reefs, like Owen mentioned. And this isn't happening over a long scale. Some of the outplanting that our team in the U.S. Virgin Islands is doing, those palmata outplants can be breaking waves within like 2 to 3 years. So this is really quick.
And you're referring to a specific reef species, yes, Valerie?
Yes, correct. Elkhorn coral.
Right. What successes have Yaque del Norte seen in the DR with their solutions?
Lo primero es que las intervenciones tienen resultados que son visibles para la comunidad. Podemos poner un ejemplo, una comunidad donde el agua residual se vierte directamente en una cañada a cielo abierto en la comunidad, provocando malos olores, problemas en la piel, en la salud. Y básicamente a nivel social no es lo mismo tú estar en un entorno sucio, podríamos decir, a luego cuando nosotros construimos los humedales artificiales, por ejemplo, la situación cambia en el entorno de la comunidad. Entonces, los resultados son visibles, ¿verdad? Más nosotros ahora estamos haciendo un análisis, un estudio de los indicadores que podemos medir de estas soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. No solamente el impacto ambiental, que se ve claramente el agua, cómo se vierte descontaminada al río, sino también el impacto social de cómo la comunidad cambia su modelo de vida y su modelo de relacionarse con el entorno a través de estas soluciones, y también lo que representa un impacto económico, porque en situaciones de contaminación como la descrita anteriormente no se podría realizar negocios, ¿verdad? Y entonces ya luego de saneada la situación, entonces sí se pueden producir negocios. Y realmente eso es en el área visible, diríamos, ¿verdad? Pero cuando hablamos, y ustedes lo mencionaban, sobre todo tú, Carlos, cuando hablamos de restauración y de conservación de la cuenca, pues los resultados son también ya medibles. Actualmente, el Yaque del Norte está inmerso en un estudio de caso de lo que representa el retorno de la inversión de los proyectos de conservación y de restauración que hacemos para poder visibilizar el impacto de esas intervenciones. Y recogiéndolo como por último, y un poco lo que dijeron anteriormente, de cómo sabemos si las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza funcionan. Y básicamente esto está basado en que todo en la naturaleza siempre funciona. Y las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza son un tipo de biomímesis que imitan a la naturaleza para poder dar soluciones a unos problemas reales que tenga la sociedad. Entonces, en ese sentido, y basado en la primera premisa de que la naturaleza nunca se equivoca, entonces estas soluciones basadas en la naturaleza son efectivas.
We're running on time, but I have two more points I want everybody to comment on as well. And the first one relates to some of what our colleague Esteva said. It has to do with community involvement. How important it is for us to involve community in the application of nature-based solutions. Because after all, one of the purposes of this is to build resilience to climate change. I don't know who wants to start. If Owen, are we involved in how important it is that we involve our communities and stakeholders in the application?
I think community involvement is very important because nature-based solutions, as our colleague said, nature always works. However, nature does take time, and it does work through time and through season. So some of the community involvement that we ask is just respect for the environment as a whole, seeing it as something that is beneficial to you on a personal level, and also some respect and sometimes a little distance to the nature-based solutions that we are constructing, because they are living organisms and they are living solutions. So they just need a little time to grow, a little time to kind of get themselves, in place, and then, they'll work for us.
Indeed, and yeah, community needs to buy in and need to engage with these nature-based solutions. Project comes and goes, but the community lives there where the interventions are taking place, and they are the one who are going to be the guardians, the keepers, and the replication facilitators for future generations to come.
Pues es clave, elemental, el involucramiento de las comunidades desde el inicio. Y en lo que respecta a los proyectos de restauración y conservación de cuencas, nosotros trabajamos directamente con las comunidades y con los beneficiarios, porque los dueños de la tierra en nuestro país normalmente están en manos del sector privado, y sobre todo en la parte alta, donde nosotros tenemos mayor problemática a nivel de una cuenca degradada. Básicamente los dueños de la tierra tienen una situación de vulnerabilidad. Entonces, para nosotros trabajar con ellos es elemental. Nosotros trabajamos básicamente con adaptación basada en ecosistema, que de Nature Conservancy nos ha estado apoyando con una metodología que permite que las comunidades puedan adaptarse a los efectos del cambio climático al tiempo que protegen sus recursos naturales, pero también tienen medios de vida para sobrevivir. Y en el caso de los humedales artificiales para el saneamiento de las aguas residuales, pues la comunidad tiene que involucrarse desde el principio, primero en el reconocimiento de la necesidad, en la construcción de la solución y luego en el mantenimiento y el seguimiento de los humedales, porque la sostenibilidad depende de qué tan involucrada esté la comunidad.
Valerie, I know you're a scientist, but I'm not sure if you have any input with where this is concerned from your observation.
Yeah, sure. I agree with everything everyone said. I would just also add that nature-based solutions are a great tool to reducing risk, like flood risk, but they're not going to eliminate all the risk. And so in our Resilient Islands project, which was in the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and Grenada, we partnered with the Red Cross. And so we involved the communities in developing emergency action plans so that during major storms, people know where to go and what to do.
Great point about referencing RI. And Valerie, I'm going to come back to you with my last question here. When we look at the work we're doing in the Dominican Republic, whether it's regenerative agriculture, mangrove replanting in Grenada, reef restoration in all of the islands we are working across the Caribbean, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Grenada, and so on. What would you say is the common thread with respect to nature-based solutions and the type of interventions that TNC and its partners are implementing across the region?
I think ultimately we want to restore or protect nature in a way that benefits people and reduces their risk. And when we're looking at risk, we're looking at exposure to flooding and things like that, but we're also looking at socioeconomic vulnerability. And so that's the common thread in when we're choosing where to work and what we need to do.
Awesome. At this point, I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds to give your final remarks with respect to nature-based solutions, resilience, how you're using it, and so on. I'm going to start with Wakiria.
Bueno, pues realmente el trabajo que se realizan desde los fondos de agua en la República Dominicana están bien orientados principalmente a garantizar una buena gobernanza, la alianza del sector público, privado y sociedad civil y todos unidos con una sola misión de contribuir con la seguridad hídrica, en nuestro caso en la cuenca Yaque del Norte, y estas a través de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, porque no es solamente que los recursos estén disponibles, sino que la comunidad pueda estar integrada a las soluciones para poder también prevenir o mitigar los efectos del cambio climático dado la situación de vulnerabilidad como es la que tenemos en República Dominicana. Desde el Fondo de Agua Yaque del Norte estamos contribuyendo con esta solución y creemos firmemente que las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza son un complemento importante para todos los tipos de soluciones que puedan prestarse en nuestras cuencas. Muchas gracias. Feliz día.
Well, Carlos, you can give your final words as well.
I was okay. Well, nature-based solution is a very important area. It's not the panacea, as Val was mentioned. It's not the only answer to that can solve one solution that fits all different issues, but it's important to keep that in mind. Uh, Legal frames, communities, or municipal regulations should include this kind of intervention in new developments because it will prevent vulnerabilities and increase of vulnerabilities where there is already an existing one with have faced these catastrophes or uh, damages.
Okay. Valerie?
I would just highlight, the co-benefits that come with nature-based solutions. So not only are we helping people adapt to climate change, but if we're, say, restoring a mangrove, that can increase the carbon storage, which is also mitigating climate change. Or if we're restoring a reef, that can also increase tourism value. So there are a lot of co-benefits to people and to nature of this work. And like everyone mentioned, even when we're selecting where to work, we want to make sure to bring in local knowledge and community input always, because if we don't have buy-in, we're not going to be successful.
Awesome. And Owen, you have the final word.
Okay, thank you. So I think nature-based solutions are integral and pretty much the way to go. I especially like the partnership and the co-benefit aspect of nature-based solutions, where people protect and restore the environment, and in return, the environment protects people. So on every level, it's a win-win-win. Also, just on a personal note, and anyone can see this, nature-based solutions by their qualities are pretty much are beautiful to look at. Just look at the before and afters of any nature-based solution project, and I think it speaks for itself. So thank you very much for the time.
All right. I want to say a big thank you as well to Carlos, Walkiria, Valerie, and Owen for joining us today on another edition of Caribbean Currents. And special thanks as well to the viewers who are watching this program. And if you enjoy our program so much, we would love to hear from you. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and, of course, share and like this video on our social media channels as well. You can also contact us via email at caribbean.news@tnc.org. That's caribbean.news@tnc.org. For more information on the work of the Nature Conservancy in the Caribbean, visit our website at www.nature.org/Caribbean. And of course, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On behalf of our production partners, UWE TV, I am Cleveland Sam. Until next time, goodbye.